The sound of a basketball hitting hardwood echoes differently when you are the only one in the gym. Each bounce reverberates against empty bleachers, against walls that have witnessed thousands of champions before you. I know this sound intimately. I have spent more hours alone with this sound than most people spend with their closest friends. My father was a professional basketball player, which meant everyone expected greatness from me. But expectations do not make you great. They just make the journey lonelier. I was 13 when I realized no superhero was coming to save me from mediocrity. No magical mentor would appear to transform me into the player I wanted to become. The realization hit me harder than any defender ever could. I remember sitting on the court after missing the game-winning shot in a junior league game. Everyone had gone home. The janitor was sweeping the halls outside. And it dawned on me with perfect clarity, if I wanted to become extraordinary, I would have to build myself into something extraordinary. Brick by brick, hour by hour, shot by shot. Most people misunderstand what it means to become your own hero. They think it is about celebration, about achievement, about being in the spotlight. But becoming your own hero begins in dark gyms when no one is watching. It begins in moments of doubt when you choose to believe in yourself anyway. It begins in the quiet decision to do what others will not do, to train when others rest, to study when others play, to persist when others surrender. When people heard I practiced from 5 a.m. throughout high school, they called it dedication. When they learned I would shoot 800 jump shots every day during summer, they called it obsession. But they never understood what those early mornings really were. They were not about basketball. They were about building someone who could withstand anything: disappointment, failure, doubt, pain, someone who could save himself when the moment demanded it. You see, there is a voice inside all of us that whispers we are not enough. That voice grew loudest in the silence of those empty gyms. But with every drop of sweat, with every muscle burning from exhaustion, I was not just practicing basketball. I was practicing courage. I was rehearsing resilience. I was becoming the hero I needed. The path to greatness is an invisible mountain that only you can see. The summit exists only in your mind, and the trail is marked by choices that others cannot understand. I learned this truth when I decided to skip college and enter the NBA draft directly from high school. Everyone had an opinion about my decision. Everyone except me had doubts. The night before the draft, I stood on my balcony looking at the city lights below. I was 17 years old, about to step into a world of men who would not welcome me with open arms. Men who would try to break me, who would see my youth as weakness, my confidence as arrogance. In that moment, I felt completely alone with my ambition. The weight of my decision pressed down on my shoulders like gravity doubled. But there was something freeing about standing at the edge of the unknown, a clarity that comes only when you have nothing but your own conviction to guide you. My father had played in Italy, had competed against legends, had taught me the fundamentals of basketball since I could walk. But he could not teach me how to carry the weight of my own dreams. That burden was mine alone. My coaches had shown me strategies and plays, had molded my raw talent into something resembling skill, but they could not show me how to believe when everyone else questioned. This journey up the invisible mountain would be mine alone. And standing there, I made a decision that would define my life. I would not just climb this mountain, I would conquer it. Not for the world to see, but for the boy inside of me who needed to know his own strength. When you decide to become your own hero, the first thing you sacrifice is the comfort of being understood. My high school teammates couldn't understand why I practiced 3 times a day. My friends couldn't understand why I studied game tapes instead of attending parties. My family couldn't understand why I pushed myself to exhaustion day after day when I was already better than most players, twice my age. But understanding was a luxury I couldn't afford. Not if I wanted to become what I saw in my mind. People talk about talent as if it is some mystical force that descends upon the chosen few. But talent without work is just potential without purpose. I was not the most naturally gifted player. I was not the tallest, not the fastest, not the strongest. What I had was an understanding that most never grasp true talent is the ability to outwork everyone else, to push beyond what seems possible, to find comfort in discomfort. I remember my first workout with the Lakers. I was still a teenager, skinny and unproven, surrounded by giants of the game. They watched me with skepticism in their eyes. Who was this kid who thought he belonged among men? What right did he have to wear the same uniform as legends? I felt their doubt like a physical presence in the room. But doubt is just another gravity you learn to defy. That day, I wasn't trying to prove I was the best player in the gym. I was trying to prove I would work harder than anyone had ever worked before. While others paced themselves through drills, I attacked each one like it was my last chance to show what lived inside me. While others conserved energy, I pushed until my lungs burned and my legs trembled. Not to impress them, but to show myself what I was willing to endure. When I arrived in the NBA as a rookie, veterans saw me as a target. They wanted to teach the kid a lesson, to put me in my place, to break my spirit before it had a chance to grow. What they did not know was that I had already taught myself the hardest lesson, that salvation comes not from others, but from within. Each time they knocked me down, I rose with greater resolve. Each time they doubted me, my belief only deepened. Not because I was special, but because I had spent years preparing for these exact moments. Moments when being your own hero is not a choice, but a necessity. During my rookie season, I would arrive at the arena 5 hours before game time. The building would be empty except for janitors and the occasional security guard. In that emptiness, I found peace. I would walk to center court, close my eyes, and visualize every move I would make that night. Every shot, every defensive play, every moment where courage would be required. This wasn't just practice, it was programming my mind to recognize opportunities before they appeared. Most players prepare their bodies for the game. I was preparing my spirit for the battle, because basketball at this level isn't just a physical contest, it's spiritual warfare. It's a test of who wants it more, who believes deeper, who is willing to sacrifice everything for a moment of transcendence. In those early years, I made plenty of mistakes. There were nights when my shots wouldn't fall, when defenders would read my moves, when doubt would creep in like a shadow at sunset. But what separated me wasn't talent or luck. It was the decision, made new each morning, that I would be the hero of my story. That no setback was final, no failure definitive, no doubt powerful enough to extinguish the fire I had built within myself. Remember this, the most important battles you will ever fight are invisible to everyone else. They happen in your mind, in your heart, in those split seconds when you decide who you are going to be. And in those moments, you must be the hero you need, because no one else can save you from yourself. No one else can climb your mountain. No one else can fulfill your destiny. That burden and that privilege belong to you alone. Every hero faces a dark forest, a place where the path disappears, where shadows play tricks on the mind, where doubt grows like thorns around your ankles. My dark forest came in the form of early career setbacks, air balls in crucial playoff moments, conflicts with teammates, criticism from coaches and media who said I was too selfish, too driven, too much. The 1,997 playoff series against Utah became my crucible. The game was tied, seconds remaining. The ball came to me, the rookie, the unproven one. I took the shot that would have won the game, that would have announced my arrival to the world. Air ball, then another and another. 4 air balls in a game that mattered more than any I had played before. The arena fell silent, except for the whispers that seemed to follow me to the locker room. Not ready, too young, too selfish. I remember sitting alone after that particularly brutal loss, scrolling through headlines that questioned everything about me, my character, my abilities, my future. The weight of public failure is different from private disappointment. It has teeth, it has voices, it follows you into empty rooms and quiet moments when your defenses are lowest. In these moments, the voice of doubt grows louder than any crowd. It whispers that perhaps everyone else is right. Perhaps you are not the hero of this story, but its cautionary tale. That night in my hotel room, I faced a choice that would define everything that followed. I could believe what the world was telling me, that I had reached too far too soon, that I should know my place, that I should surrender to limitations others saw in me. Or I could believe what I knew about myself, that those air balls were not evidence of my ceiling, but markers on my floor. That failure is not a verdict, but a lesson. What separates those who emerge from the dark forest from those who remain lost within it is not talent or luck. It is the quiet decision to be your own light, to generate from within yourself the illumination needed to find your way forward. This is the hardest part of the hero's journey because it requires you to believe in something you cannot see, the person you are capable of becoming. The morning after those air balls, I found a gym in Utah. The door was locked, but where others see barriers, I saw challenges to overcome. I convinced the janitor to let me in. For hours, I replicated those exact shots I had missed hundreds of times. My arms ached, my lungs burned, but with each repetition, I was doing something more important than improving my jump shot. I was teaching myself that failure is never final unless you accept it as such. When teammates asked about the game, expecting to find me defeated, they discovered someone transformed, not by success, but by the refusal to be defined by failure. This is when people began to notice something different about my approach. They called it obsession. They called it relentlessness. Later, they would call it the Mamba mentality. During those difficult years that followed, I developed this mindset into a philosophy. But the Mamba mentality was never about basketball. It was about transformation, about shedding your old self like skin that no longer fits, about embracing discomfort as the only path to growth. The Mamba was not born from success. It was forged in the crucible of doubt and disappointment. People misunderstand this mentality. They think it is about domination, about imposing your will upon others. But its true power is internal. It begins with the recognition that you are both the sculptor and the stone, that your greatest limitations are not external but self-imposed, that your deepest fears are phantoms that dissolve when confronted. There were seasons when my body would fail me. Broken fingers that needed surgery, shoulders that dislocated mid-game, ankles that swelled to twice their size. Doctors would tell me I needed weeks to recover. I would be back on the court in days, not because I was superhuman, but because I had learned to distinguish between pain and injury, between discomfort and danger. Your body can endure far more than your mind believes possible. I began to understand that my greatest opponent would never wear another team's jersey. My greatest opponent stared back at me in the mirror each morning. And to defeat this opponent, I had to become someone new. Someone who did not fear failure, but recognized it as the most effective teacher. Someone who understood that greatness is not a destination, but a continuous evolution. The championship in 2000 changed how the world saw me. But true heroes aren't made in moments of triumph. They're forged in the darkness that precedes it. In the doubts overcome, the fears faced, the pain transcended. Success didn't eliminate my dark forest. It just illuminated the path I had already been walking. As my reputation grew, so did the expectations. Each victory raised the standard for the next. Each championship created hunger for another. The dark forest never disappears completely. It changes shape. It finds new ways to test your resolve, new doubts to plant in your mind, new reasons to surrender your dream. The dark forest teaches you the most important lesson of heroism, that saving yourself is not a one-time event, but a daily choice. Each morning, you must decide again to be the hero of your story. You must choose courage over comfort, growth over safety, truth over illusion. And you must make this choice when no one is watching, when no one is cheering, when the only reward is knowing you did not surrender to your own doubts. When injuries began to multiply, when age began to slow my first step, when younger players began to challenge my position, the dark force returned in a new form. It whispered that time is undefeated, that all legends eventually fade, that perhaps it was time to accept a diminished version of myself. This is when the true test of the Mamba mentality arrived. Not in becoming great, but in remaining great when everything within and around you urges surrender. What I want you to understand about the dark force is that you never defeat it permanently. You learn to navigate it. You learn to draw strength from the shadows. You learn that doubt is not your enemy, but your compass, showing you exactly where growth awaits. 5 championships. Most people see the trophies, the confetti falling from the ceiling, the celebrations. What they do not see are the thousands of private victories that made those public moments possible. They do not see the battles fought within, the countless times I had to save myself before I could help save my team. The championship in 2000 came after years of doubt, after being labeled uncoachable, after being told I would never win playing my way. The 2001 championship came through the most dominant playoff run in NBA history. not because we were the most talented team, but because we had mastered ourselves before mastering others. The 2002 championship completed the three-peat, cementing a legacy that many thought impossible for someone who had skipped college. The 2009 championship came after the most difficult period of my career, after demanding a trade, after rebuilding not just a team, but my entire approach to leadership. The 2010 championship came in a 7-game war against our greatest rivals, a test not just of skill, but of will. Behind each of these public triumphs were private battles no one witnessed, mornings when my body begged for rest, but my mind demanded growth, nights spent studying film while competitors slept, summers dedicated to developing new weapons while others recovered from the season. Conversations with myself in empty gyms, reminding the person in the mirror that good is the enemy of great, that yesterday's achievement is today's baseline, that comfort is the first step toward decline. After winning my first championship, a reporter asked me if I felt satisfied. The question confused me. Satisfaction implies an ending, a completion, but the pursuit of mastery has no finish line. The moment you believe you have arrived is the moment you begin to decline. True champions understand this paradox. You must be hungry for victory, but never fulfilled by it. I remember the morning after that first championship parade, while the city still celebrated, while my teammates enjoyed the fruits of victory, I was back in the gym, not because I didn't value what we had accomplished, but because I understood something essential about greatness. It is not an achievement, but a practice, not a destination, but a direction. The trophy was already in the past. The question that mattered was, who would I become next? Championship of self means competing not against others, but against the limits of your own potential. It means never being satisfied with who you are today because you can see so clearly who you might become tomorrow. This is not about perfectionism, it is about growth. It is not about comparing yourself to others. It is about surpassing who you were yesterday. The most important championship I ever won never came with a trophy. It happened during the 2004-2005 season when the team was rebuilding, when victories were scarce, when critics said my style of play would never lead to championships again. I had a choice: adapt to lowered expectations or redefine what was possible. I chose the latter. That season, I scored 81 points in a single game, averaged 35.4 points for the season, scored 62 points in 3 quarters against Dallas, not to prove anything to others, but to prove to myself that limitations are largely self-imposed. These were not just basketball accomplishments. They were declarations of war against mediocrity, against acceptance of anything less than my absolute best. They were reminders that when you become your own hero, you establish your own standards. You answer to a voice within that demands excellence when everyone else would settle for good enough. People often ask about my relationship with Phil Jackson, how a coach known for sublimating individual achievement into team success worked with a player like me. What they didn't understand was that Phil didn't teach me to score less. He taught me to see more, to recognize that true greatness isn't just about what you achieve, but what you enable others to achieve. That the highest form of self-mastery is knowing exactly when to assert yourself and when to elevate others. This lesson was never more important than after Shaq left and I had to redefine not just my game, but my entire approach to leadership. It would have been easy to continue as the scoring champion who couldn't win the ultimate prize. It would have been easy to blame teammates who didn't match my intensity or commitment. Instead, I had to look in the mirror and ask the hardest question: what part of me is standing in the way of what we could become? During my rehabilitation from a torn Achilles tendon, an injury that ends many careers, doctors told me to prepare for a different game, a diminished version of myself. They spoke as if the hero of my story had reached his final chapter, but they misunderstood who I had become through all those years of saving myself. Physical limitations could change how I played, but they could not change how I fought. I remember the moment it happened, the pop that echoed through my body, the immediate knowledge that something fundamental had changed. As I sat on the court, my mind raced not with fear, but with calculations. How long to recover? How to modify my game? What aspects of my skill would need to evolve? Even in that moment of physical failure, The habit of turning obstacles into opportunities took over. The rehabilitation was the loneliest battle I ever faced. Hours of painful exercises, small victories measured in millimeters of movement, setbacks that sent me spiraling into darkness. No cameras captured these moments. No fans cheered these victories. But these were the true championships, the ones I won against my own limitations, against the voice that urged surrender, against the comfort of accepting what seemed inevitable. 300 days of rehabilitation, 300 private championships, each morning waking to the same choice, accept the new reality of limitation or defy every expectation, including my own. When I finally returned to the court, I was different, not just physically, but spiritually. I had descended to the deepest part of the dark forest and emerged not just intact, but illuminated. I understood then that the body is temporary, but the spirit of the hero you become is eternal. In the final years of my career, as my physical tools diminished, my mental mastery grew. I could see the game with perfect clarity, not just what was happening, but what would happen 3 moves ahead. My body might betray me, but my mind had achieved a championship of its own. The ability to remain completely present, completely focused, completely committed, regardless of circumstance, this is the ultimate victory. What I want you to understand is that your most meaningful victories will not come with trophies or headlines. They will come in quiet moments, when you choose discipline over distraction, long-term growth over short-term comfort, hard truths over comforting lies. These private championships form the foundation upon which all public success is built. The final game of my career, 60 points, an impossible comeback victory, a farewell performance that defied logic and physical limitation, was not a miracle. It was not luck. It was the culmination of thousands of private championships won when no one was watching. It was the final public testament to what happens when you become the hero of your own story. When you refuse to be defined by circumstance or expectation, when you answer only to the highest standard, the one you set for yourself. Legacy is not what you leave behind for others, it is what you build within others. As my career approached its end, I began to understand that becoming your own hero is only the first half of the journey. The second half is helping others discover the hero within themselves. Not by rescuing them, but by showing them they never needed rescuing in the first place. My daughter Gianna saw something in basketball that I recognized. Not just a game, but a canvas for self-expression, a laboratory for testing one's character, a mirror that shows you who you truly are. Watching her develop her own passion, her own drive, I realized the most important lesson of my journey. The hero you become is meant to inspire, not to save. I could not save her from the challenges she would face as she pursued her dreams. I could not fight her battles or climb her mountains, but I could show her what it means to face difficulty with courage, to meet doubt with belief, to transform pain into power. I could show her that heroes are not born but built, day by day, choice by choice. Now I speak to you in the language of someone who has traveled the path from ordinary to extraordinary, not because of special gifts, but because of unrelenting belief in the power of self-creation. The world will try to define you. It will try to limit you. It will try to place you in a box labeled with others' expectations. Your heroism begins the moment you reject these limitations and declare, I am the author of my story. Remember that no one is coming to save you from mediocrity, from complacency, from the gravity of average that pulls at everyone. This is not a tragedy, it is an opportunity. An opportunity to discover strengths you never knew you had, to develop resilience you never knew you needed, to become someone you never imagined you could be. The greatest gift I received was not talent or opportunity. It was the realization that I had to become my own hero. And now I pass this gift to you, not as a burden, but as a liberation. You are not waiting for a hero, you are the hero waiting for the courage to begin. Start now, start where you are, start with what you have. The first step is always the same, the decision to save yourself.